With all these rockets blasting off, it's time we said goodbye to the island paradise of Pelagos, but not before we do a little bit of resource stabilising and have some fun. Welcome to Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, where today it's about logistics, boat races, and eating islands. Making science packs requires resources, and if we're going to flee this planet and leave it to its own devices, we need to make sure that it can keep going without us babysitting it. To that end, Tristan has expanded the iron ore mining to the island just off to the northwest, slapping down a simple diesel-powered mining system here. Following the belts down, we come to where Tristan expanded the iron smelting system as well, and then Sophia expanded it even further. They've also added in crane stack inserters on the output to increase the throughput of the iron belt. Ah yes, we can't move on from Pelagos without looking at the genuinely unhinged crane stack inserter. I was looking forward to researching these to get that extra bit of throughput on some of the islands, because I expected it to be basically a diesel-powered version of the normal stack inserter, but it's so much more. These things interpret stack in a very different way. Rather than just piling items up on a belt, they quite literally lift a stack at a time. Unloading onto a belt like this, it makes them just a slightly more effective version of the normal stack inserter. But if you get them moving items from one box to another, whether that box is a chest, a train wagon, a cargo ship, whatever, they end up having a crazy level of throughput, because depending on what they're passing over, they might move 200 items in a single swing. I feel like we need to upgrade all of our railway stations on Norvis to start using these things, because they'll be so much quicker. But is that actually true? Let's check the numbers. Our normal stack inserters will move 26 items per swing. That's actually really good already, but the crane inserters can move 271. However, they do max out at a full stack of whatever they're moving. This is an interesting balance because they're also 3 squares wide, so they have to be better than the 3 stack inserters they replace, meaning they're only faster if the item stacks to more than 78. That means that for loading things with a stack size of 50, like low density structures, into a train, a bank of normal stack inserters will actually be faster. But for metal plates, and especially for circuits, which stack to 100 and 200 items respectively, the cranes will be noticeably faster. They do also limit the number of chests you can empty into, but since a steel chest has more space than a railway wagon, I think that's okay. The effectiveness of these cranes is somewhat nerfed by the power of the researches we've already unlocked. Looking again at the stack inserter, I said it has a speed of 26, but that's actually a base speed of 5, plus a bonus of 21 from our researches. In vanilla it starts at 6 and can be taken up to 16 through the available researches, so if we were just playing with Pelagos rather than an enormous smorgasbord of other mods, the crane inserter would clearly beat out the normal stack inserter, at least for anything with a stack size from 50 upwards. Ah well, we aren't exactly a stranger to being unbalanced around here. The crane stack inserter is still an amazing idea, and did make me genuinely burst out laughing when I first saw it working. That's some impressive balancing skills right there. I should mention in passing that there's also a crane bulk inserter available too. This is very similar to the crane stack in that it can pick up a whole stack at once, however it drops items onto a belt one at a time, like a normal bulk inserter. It's also a bit cheaper to make, but at this stage of the game that's basically irrelevant to us. Mike and Tristan have also been extending the copper supply with a couple of major changes. Way off to the north, Mike has captured another 4 copper spitter spawners, bringing us up to a total of 6 eggy producers. We would have had 5 more, however there was a tragic accident during the capture process. These are being kept happy with the fermented fish belt that we saw before, and being kept safe with a ring of gun turrets. We don't expect these to actually be required, and so rather than sending in a proper feed of ammunition, he's chucked 20 green mags in each and called it good. I think that because in this case the feed supply is local as opposed to the biter farm on Norvis, which is importing bioflux from Gleba, it's probably pretty safe. There is a chance that the fish supply will fail, after all I built it, but it's running happily at the moment and I feel like I expect it to continue. I guess we'll see. These spawners are pouring a steady stream of eggs down to the processing area, which is then turning them into copper as we've seen before. The change down here is that there are now extra machines crushing the ore and overclock modules in the calciners. Since ethanol is cheap on Pelagos, the extra fuel consumption there is probably fine, and is giving us an extra 24% on top of the doubling from the calciners. Those calciners are still the limiting factor though. You can see the crushed copper backlogging on the belt, and so there is a cable connected to the furthest box that's filling up with the copper ore. This signal is sent on a cable up the belts and tells the inserters to switch off when the buffer starts to build up in the chest. This prevents the eggs from being pulled out of the spawners if they're not going to get processed, and ensures that we shouldn't get any eggs hatching in the processing area. That's worked well so far, and I don't think it's affected the copper production rate. And to prove that, we can look here at the production graph. Hot copper plates shows a dead flat line over the last hour, so it's definitely consistent. Is it fast enough? Well, that's open to debate, but it's definitely steady. You know, that's a bit unfair. I phrase that as a question in a who could possibly know kind of way, but the consumption graph is right there, right next to the production one. That shows that over the last hour we've produced 1.5 thousand copper plates per minute, and we've used all of them. So it looks like it wasn't enough. And if we take a look at the consumption graph, we can see a clear pattern. I suspect that this matches up neatly with the ships arriving. Consumption leaps up to over 3,000 when the ship arrives and there's some buffer filling, and then it drops to the steady state of 1.8 thousand. Then the supply runs out and it drops to 0. It looks like we need about 20% more to keep the system happy in the steady state, and since there's 9 calciners running now, adding in 2 more should fix that. And maybe a couple of extra ones as well, just to be sure. To get around this shortfall, at least to an extent, Sophia has added in a request for copper plates to be dropped in from space, much to everyone else's disgust. I guess we feel that a planet should try to stand up on its own 2 resources, rather than rely on handouts from elsewhere. This was all very well when we were getting started, but I think I'd rather see the eggery upgraded by a third, or maybe more. The copper drop-off port is also worth taking a look at. Once again, Tristan has done some brain-breaking stuff with the ultra-long inserters, allowing a ship to be simultaneously unloaded into 2 chests on each row, one here with this short inserter and one here with this long one. These are then unloaded onto this belt, with the short and ultra-longs placing on opposite sides of the belt. This means that in theory, we can unload onto both sides of the belt and have lots of nicely even output. The belts all get merged and then passed through a side balancer, which is supposed to make sure that the resource draw is even from all of the storage chests. However, because the short inserters swing at 3 times the speed of the ultra-long ones, the ship unloading is unbalanced, causing us to eventually end up with resources only on one side of the belt. We'll have to fix this, perhaps by alternating which way round each pair of inserters unloads, short inserter to port, then short inserter to starboard. In hindsight, this is probably why we saw that higher level on the consumption chart. Whilst both sides of the belt were being filled, the factory was able to use the copper more quickly. The next resource to take a look at is much more short-term. We only need stone for some of the construction, maybe as landfill to tweak the island shapes, or to crunch down to make concrete. This is a good thing, because there isn't a nice way to get a steady stream of stone on Pelagos, but you can get relatively small amounts by eating islands. We've talked about this before, so I won't go into the detail, but I do want to show you this archipelago, except I can't because Sophia ate it. The whole thing has been chewed up by his excavators and turned into stone to feed the factory, and now all that remains is these patches of shallow water where the islands used to be. It's okay though, the planet got its own back on him. We're not 100% sure what happened, but somehow he managed to fall into one of his own excavators and was horribly killed. But it's okay, he got better. While all this digging was going on, we did check out another recipe for concrete. There is a Pelagogian speciality available called co-concrete, and I bet you can guess what the special ingredient is. Yep, by combining coconut husk with iron ore and water, we can make concrete. This seemed like a great idea and ideal for using the planet's resources, but we don't actually have iron ore and coconut husk in the same place. And it makes concrete blocks, which, because we're using crushing industries, we would then have to smash up into the concrete slurry, which is what we actually need for making rocket silos, and that's a fairly inefficient recipe. So we decided that since we don't actually need an enormous amount, and because we don't need it ongoing, we might as well just eat the islands. On a lighter note, Mark was kind enough to set up a boat race for us with the galleons. We had a course which required us to sail around Surströmming Island, looping out past the egg collection and up the narrow strait. We all got in our ships, waited for the starting gun, and yeah, everything went about as you'd predict.
Okay, that was your fault for not...
We had another go, with a much shorter course and some very strict instructions not to shoot each other. This one went better, although when all the vehicles have exactly the same top speed, a race is a little uninspiring. It was looking like I'd get a nice third place podium spot until Mike and Sophia got their masts spectacularly tangled and I was able to slip past and across the line.
Yay!
I thought it was a nice clean victory with no hard feelings, at least until Sophia shot me with a cannon while I was looking at another planet. I thought that was a bit mean.
Sorry.
Those cannons are really powerful though, went straight through my mech armour, and I ended up having to sail back up in boat to reclaim all of my stuff. That brought the Pelagos fatalities up to 2, which seems pretty good for a calm and generally safe planet. 1 industrial accident and 1 instance of poor sportsmanship, but no kills for the copper spitters. I'd call that victory. And on that cannon shell, it's time to end the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please come along to join us on Monday at 7:30 PM UK time to see what planet we're working on this week. Progress is good, but there's always another planet to investigate. If you'd like to play with cannons, coconuts and cubes, you can grab the Planetary Pioneers mod from the Factorio mod portal. Use the code 11111 to get your own copy of our solar system. I'll also be back on Wednesday for a solo stream. I'm playing some smaller mods and games on that one, so who knows what I'll be up to. Come along to find out. These videos will continue to come out every Thursday and Friday too, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss them. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.